Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Foresight TV. I have got Kerri Johnson with me today. She's doing something really, really cool for older people, and it has direct implication for senior living. Powerful, powerful stuff. Before we get into our conversation, this. Hey guys, Steve Moran here. So Kerri, in our team meeting and in the things we write and the content we put out, we spend a lot of time talking about quality of life for residents. We think that when senior living is successful, they give the highest quality of life that people have. But what we don't really spend much time talking about is something that I think you address, and that's this big issue of what happens if residents or older people can't actually access those things that are most meaningful to them. And maybe we just sort of accept that that's not okay. And you address one of those big issues in ways that people don't think about at all. So why don't you talk to me a little bit about the problem you solve and what you do?
We provide solutions to complex travel challenges. And for some, that may be mobility. For others, it may be a cognitive decline. It may be incontinence. It may be the fear of flying. It just may be the long distance travel that is in front of them that is overwhelming, or perhaps overwhelming for the family. So we provide solutions to provide safe and comfortable and efficient travel for our seniors or anyone with age or health restrictions. So anybody over the age of 18, we can assist, but primarily our greatest niche in our business has been relocation efforts for seniors, for families looking to move their loved one back closer to them. That's usually what happens. We're Florida based, and oftentimes seniors will come to Florida to retire and then they decline. And the family back in New York or California or Wisconsin, wherever it may be, does not know how they're going to get their loved one back to be near them so that they can care for them. So this is something that we can dive into today and describe how we help, but that is the solution that we're providing for senior living operators.
So I love this. I think it's a huge need. I think it represents an opportunity for operators as they're trying to serve residents best. But as you were talking about it, I was thinking, so just a year ago, minus a couple of weeks, we traveled from Sacramento, where I live. My 92-year-old stepfather was living with us, and we drove to Seattle for Christmas. And he's sort of mid-stage dementia. And it was me and my wife and two dogs and him. And it was a big, big challenge because he was confused. And I'm thinking, man, if I had somebody who could just maybe fly up with him and I meet him at the airport, that would have been huge. But before we sort of get into the logistics of what you do, you've got kind of a very interesting origin story of how you got into that. And I'd love to have you tell that story.
It is an interesting story, Steve. So thank you for asking. I've been a registered nurse for 7 years now, maybe. I've lost track. And I was working in spine surgery, selling surgical spine implants to neurosurgeons. And I looked around one day and I didn't see anybody my age, any females my age in this role. And I figured, wow, I'm going to age out of my job. And so I went in my 40s to get my executive MBA. I was the oldest person in my class, and I wanted to own my own business so that I could control my own future. And I got my MBA still wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it. And then I had a major life event. I found my biological father at 49.
Okay, so I want to back you up a little bit because I want to go to the story when the man who you thought who I guess really raised you passed away. I think we got to get to that first.
Yeah, so my dad, the man who raised me is my dad. And
Yep.
my dad was passing away. He was in the hospital and he had undergone cardiac surgery and was receiving blood transfusions. And as a nurse, I would sleep at the hospital in his room overnight. And this one evening, I looked up and he was getting O positive blood. And I knew that my mother had O positive blood. And I also knew that I was B positive. So there was no possible way that two O's can make a B. So it was at that moment later in life that I realized that he was not my biological father. So I went to search.
That must have been a real gut check.
Oh, gut check is putting it nicely. Actually, I can feel it right now, like in my gut. Yeah, I don't think until you've been in that position, do you realize what that means to you?
Yeah. And so that started you on a quest to find your biological father.
Correct. And then when I found him, he had dementia and he couldn't travel alone. He couldn't make connecting flights. He had to have a nonstop flight. And even then he really safely couldn't get to the airport alone. And it really took me back to my business years working, my corporate travel years, seeing seniors in airports being just looking completely petrified, right? Not knowing where to go, not trying to listen to the gate announcements and trying to navigate their way through TSA and trying to get to their gate. And so it really kind of took me back to that, realizing that I've seen this all of my life. I've seen seniors struggle in airports all of my life. And so it gave me the opportunity to take my nursing background in patient care, take my corporate travel experience and create this business to provide safe travel for seniors.
Okay, so I got to ask this. I mean, I love entrepreneurial stories, right? But it's a big step to go from this sort of aha light goes on to creating a business, and maybe the most difficult of all is to finding your first customer or customers. Talk to me about that journey.
That's a great question. I haven't really had anybody ask. And I love the question because it goes to perseverance and, persistence and discipline and creating a business from scratch, right? So my first client ever was from the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville, Florida. He was a post-operative patient that needed help getting home to West Palm Beach. So I was living in Jacksonville, Florida at the time. So I had a connection there at the Mayo Clinic, and he was my first traveler. But I'm so glad you asked this question because just yesterday was the 6-year anniversary of when I took a leap of faith. I decided that I wanted to present to the Mayo Clinic, the mothership of Mayo Clinic, the #1 hospital in the country. So I was able to get an opportunity to present to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I took this leap of faith. I really didn't have any revenue coming in, right? I bought a plane ticket. I bought a hotel room. I remember thinking, wow, I'm really taking a gamble here. Like I could just be out all of this money, but I presented to the Mayo Clinic. They didn't have a resource such as mine. And then that was December, what's the date today? The 5th. So it was December 4th of 2019. Wow. And we all know what happened just a few months later, right? So a few months later, COVID approaches and the Mayo Clinic then started sending people to us that needed help to travel, needed help to get to their life-saving treatments, maybe clinical trials, whatever the scenario was. And so through the time of do not travel, no non-essential travel, we were actually growing. We had an opportunity to grow. And that experience, there's so many aspects of that experience. As you can imagine, like you're the only one on the road. Even the truck drivers were at home, and we are driving from Florida to Minnesota for this gentleman to receive his treatment. And so there's so much about that was inspiring, but what it really did is it took the focus away that I thought was going to be on leisure travel, which we still do. We help people attend family weddings and go to bucket list vacations in Switzerland. Allowed me to really focus on needs-based travel, and which is where we are today. It's the majority of our business.
So, I love that origin story. I actually, about 2 hours ago, I spent some time talking to a young man who is looking to do something impactful. And I've got a brilliant business idea for him to do that. If somebody else is interested, they can reach out to me later. I'm not going to talk about it and take your time on it. And I think that these leaps of faith are so important. So, typically, as you work with, do mostly what happens? Particularly in the senior living realm, do you have a relationship with operators and they reach out to you, or where do your people come from? And I guess more importantly, as I think about senior living operators who are watching or leaders who are watching, and they're how should they be thinking about you as a resource?
Yep. So my entrance into senior living was initially through senior placement organizations. So I partnered with national senior placement organizations, and then that later developed into partnerships with senior living operators. So right now we have a national partnership with Discovery Senior Living, large, national chain, and they see the value and what we provide, which is expeditiously getting somebody to their community safely, right? Those two components are what we're looking for. And so they understand that value and then have partnered with us to support our efforts in marketing to their sales and marketing managers.
Okay, so let's actually walk through kind of, I'm going to want to do some storytelling with you, but let's just create a theoretical case. I'm in California. I'm in Minnesota, but people don't move away from California so much, although sometimes they do. But I'm in Minnesota, and my mom has moved to Florida. Very typical situation because she hates the snow and the shoveling, got dementia, and has to be in senior living. It obviously makes no sense for her to be in senior living in Florida where there's no family. Need to bring her back to Minnesota. I go out and I find my great senior living community that I want to move her to. And then I start realizing, I don't know how I'm going to get mom here. She's got some confusion. She's got to go stop and go to the bathroom every 15 minutes. She's, talk to me about how that works. What happens?
So once we're hired to help, we take care of all of the logistics involved with the travel. And our business model involves commercial flights. So oftentimes we'll get a phone call from a family and they'll say, oh, we need to drive our parent, from Florida to Minnesota or vice versa, thinking that that's the only option, right? But because of the skill set of our nurses and our partnerships with the airlines and TSA and everything that is involved around our business, we're able to provide a very predictable environment. So if you're driving down the road for 20 hours, it's not very predictable. You don't know where the next rest stop is. If you need help, you may be in the middle of nowhere. You may not have assistance. And the sundowner syndrome for those with dementia, as the day goes on, they become more and more confused. It's just not a good. I feel for you last year driving.
Yeah, I'm nodding because I'm hearing so much of this in my experience in my 14-hour or so drive. So, yep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, our business model, we take that first morning flight and we typically, depending on the distance within the country that we're traveling, but typically we can have the new resident in their new home comfortably by lunchtime. So, now we deal with delays. Today, for example, Detroit had a ground stop for about 3.5 hours. And, we had to deal with that. But we are on the back end. Our team is on the back end. We have plan B, we have plan C, we've booked other flights on another airline. We're doing all these things to ensure, because now the gentleman is here in Florida from Detroit this morning. I mean, he's here in Florida. Had we not been working behind the scenes, they might still be stuck in Detroit, right? Which would be just a disaster. So anyways, I mean, those types of things are not predictable, but if a snowstorm's coming, we're pivoting and changing plans. If there's a flight, we had a flight yesterday where the sensor went out on an American Airlines plane in Connecticut and they missed their connection to LAX through Charlotte. We managed that, right? We got them rebooked and we took care of all of that. So things can still happen, especially in the winter or rainy seasons. I mean, things can happen, but typically it's pretty flawless. So we're very proud of that. We're very proud of our track record, and it takes that stress away from the family, and the new community gets their new admission as planned.
So, I mean, I know this is sort of nitty gritty, but I'm kind of interested in it. And I think probably operators are. So I've got somebody. So you're going to arrange for a vehicle, or the community is going to transport them from a vehicle. Well, I guess typically if they're going from their home to senior living, you're going to take care of the ground transportation to get them to the airport, get them through. I hadn't really thought about it, but I guess getting through TSA could be kind of a big deal, and getting bags checked and all that stuff can be kind of a big deal, right? And
it is a big deal. Yeah.
And on the airplane.
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
So what about TSA?
Yeah, we have a great partnership with TSA that we work with them directly, because the majority of our seniors do not have real ID.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and these are the things that people aren't thinking about. Right. So when they work with us, we manage that. We file a claim with the TSA. They're expecting us on that day of travel. We take care of all of that so that we can get them through the TSA checkpoint. So it's the little things that families may not think about: what to pack, what flight to take, what TSA, all of these scenarios, all of these unknowns, we manage.
And then the flight, and then you've got transportation on the other end to get them to the community, and everything is good to go. And then your nurse goes home to where. Now, you always use a nurse as the companion. Is that correct?
I always use a nurse, because when I started, I didn't have that philosophy, and it's just not ideal, because sometimes the family may not be forthcoming with certain things, or the person may decline as the day goes along, and all of a sudden start to encounter some scenarios. So we use registered nurses because they're medically trained. They are empathetic. They are attention to detail. They know how to manage a crisis. So we always have registered nurses. We currently have 25 nurses throughout the United States, from Seattle to New York and all in between. And we're actively hiring for some new cities, and we're excited about that. So we utilize these registered nurses to do door-to-door service. So if they're at their home or at a current community, we are picking them up there, managing the whole in-flight process, delivering them to their new location, and then our nurse flies home.
So I have one more question about nurses. So I sort of assume most nurses who are licensed are competent at what they're doing. I spent 24 hours in the hospital about 3 weeks ago. And I had 3 just terrific nurses, and they worked with me and they helped me figure things out, and they were really attentive. And then I had one nurse that was Nurse Ratchet, and all she cared about was the rules, and she didn't care about me at all. And it was a terrible experience. So how do you make sure you get nurses that are not just competent but nice?
They come through me.
Okay,
they come
good.
through me. So they all have to have extensive travel experience. That's not something that we're going to teach. So they have to have extensive travel experience. And then they go through an interview process with our team. My team knows exactly what the expectations are. And this is a job that is not considered fun, right? I hear that a lot. Oh, that sounds like that would be a fun job. This is a very serious job, and it's a very high touch, lots of logistics, lots of timing. I mean, everything about from the time you get picked up at your hotel in the morning all the way until they're delivered. I mean, we're on a timeline, right? So everybody goes through a serious vetting process, and then they meet me. And before my company grew, I was doing all of the trips myself. So I know exactly what's required. I know exactly what can happen. And so when they get to me, I can determine if it's a good fit because I know what we need.
Yeah, it's so important. I did it when I think I was 18 or 19 years old. I did a 2-week road trip with a guy who was in his 30s, who's quadriplegic. And one night in the middle of the night, there was a driving trip, and one night in the middle of the night, his catheter went bad. And imagine a 19-year-old. Now, I'd been doing his catheter care, so we managed to get to the emergency room, but it was in my car, and it was a mess. And so I can see how having a nurse there, and I believe that it's not fun, that it's real work. You got to be able to manage that stuff, right? So can you just do a little storytelling? Tell me about a couple of the look, you got a fan there.
Yes, Kate. I love Kate.
So can you tell me, maybe tell me a couple of stories, or give me some examples of some I don't know, do you call them cases that you've worked in where you've had really successful outcomes?
We call them trips, and then they're travelers. They're not patients, right? There are travelers. We've now been to 44 states and 14 countries, so there's no boundary to where we can go. And an internal success story that I want to share, because as I mentioned earlier, yesterday was the 6-year anniversary of when I went to the Mayo Clinic. Yep. Also yesterday was the first time that we had 2 GoMo Travel nurses pass each other in the Detroit airport, neither of which knew that the other was there, right? We hadn't communicated that. Yep. But they passed each other with their GoMo Travel wheelchairs. Our nurses travel with our own wheelchairs. And for me, I was tearful. It was this moment of we're doing it. We're making it. We are exactly the growth pattern I wanted to be in. So that's an internal success story, which I'm excited to share. But the personal family stories, success stories, oh my gosh, not only just safely relocating their loved one. We have 100 stories to tell about that. We've also been able to help people. I helped a gentleman attend the celebration of life for his parents. His parents died during COVID, and he had MS, and he was determined to get from Florida to Pennsylvania to be at the celebration of life. And not only that, I helped him to get to the altar to give the eulogy.
Wow.
That was a moment. That was a moment for me. Won't forget that one.
Yeah, that's very powerful. So typically when you do these trips, is there typically a family member that also goes along?
Typically no. If the family member wants to travel along with us, they are more than welcome to. But it's actually additional work for us. We're worried about, we're watching another person, right? And it's also more costly than for them because they have that ticket, that airfare, and their time. So we typically say, stay home, be at the community, rested, have the room decorated. We'll bring the loved one to you, be refreshed, because once they get there, that's a whole new set of dynamics. So we tend to tell them not to worry, just let us take care of it.
Okay. I always like to ask, and this is, one of the things we tell our guests is that if I ask something you don't want to hear, we've got a private chat. You can say that, but I'll give you the option on this. I particularly like to ask entrepreneurs, leaders about your stories, because I think we actually tend to learn more from failure stories than we do for success stories. So, do you ever have a trip that went wrong that you learned from and were able to build off of that you could talk about?
Oh, we're always learning. I'm not that person to say everything's perfect always. We
Of
are
course.
always learning, and we take any opportunity to take an event and get better from it and learn from it. I think early on it might have been with airline delays. Kind of maybe waiting too long. Now we've learned from that, right? So we are, like, for example, this morning when the outage in Detroit, I was booking a Southwest flight. The Delta, it was only affecting Delta, but that's a hub. Detroit's a Delta hub, so the majority of the aircraft out of there are Delta. But I was quick to book a Southwest flight, and about 20 minutes later, those were all sold out. So it's kind of learning from mistakes in the past, maybe trusting that things are going to work out. No, we have to be more proactive. And so I think that's probably been our biggest growth, is our responsiveness. And I think that's really important for our continued growth as well.
Favorite airports and worst airports?
Favorite and worst. Well, worst would have to be Chicago. Sorry, any folks from Chicago out there. It's just so far from one concourse to another, it seems. But favorite, I would have to say my home airport, right? Fort Myers, RSW. It's it's a great little. All the smaller airports are nice to manage, easier to manage, but really. We manage Chicago too, right? It's not difficult. It just can be far with a tight connection. So I love being in an airport. I get energy. I love to see an airplane fly over my head. Like, aviation excites me, which is good, I guess. I'm in the right business, so I'm glad that you actually asked that question, because GoMo gets its name from FOMO. So 7 years ago, when I was starting this business, I didn't want seniors to have FOMO, which is the acronym fear of missing out. So we didn't want seniors to miss out on the human connection, life's events, like whatever that they wanted to do. They should not have to choose between safety and freedom. They should be able to travel. And so there is no FOMO with GoMo. We can go more. That's how we got our name. And so when I'm not on a plane and I see it fly over, I have FOMO. I'm like, what's going on that plane? I want to be on it.
I love that. So it's funny you say Mayor, Chicago. Now I'm mostly a Delta person, so I very rarely go in and out of Chicago. But I think my worst, for the same reasons, is Minneapolis. Everything is just so far apart there, and
but at least they have moving walkways there, so
they do. But it's I was when I was in the hospital, I was sick and on my way home, and I had short connection, and I hated it there. I'm actually landing there next week, but I stopped there, and so it'll be okay. We're just about I love this so much. I'd like to talk a little bit before we close out, though, about leisure travel. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that? I mean, would you have sent a nurse like on a cruise, or maybe just a week vacation where they want to have somebody come along but don't want to be stuck? I hate to use the word stuck, but that's sort of what it looks like, caring for somebody.
Oh, and yes, and we've done all sorts of leisure travel. And I think I mentioned Switzerland. We helped a woman trace her roots. In Switzerland, we were in 10 hotels in 12 days and traveled around the country. Those are obvious things. I think for this audience and senior living, where it can be really impactful is independent living, or even assisted living, depending on how much assistance they need. But these folks would love to attend their granddaughter's wedding, or their grandson's graduation, or some type of family event. And we can help them to do that and then safely get back. So everybody wants grandma or grandpa at the wedding, but nobody has time to go get grandma or grandpa, or then worry about what time they're going to leave the reception and how are they going to get to the hotel and those types of things. So that's where it's real impactful in the senior living housing, that we can help them to still be connected to their family for big events.
Yeah, I really like that because as I sort of started in the intro, I think this idea of being able to enable people who have enough financial resources to be able to go do these sort of lifetime, often last trips is a really, really powerful and important part of what you do. Kerri, we're about out of time. Let's just talk briefly about how people find you. Actually, one more question related to that is, how long does it take to set up a trip?
We can respond within 24 hours. So, most of what we do in the senior living world, because they're giving a 30-day notice or they're having to find a community, we typically have a few weeks, and that's better for airfare costs and such. But we can turn around a trip in as little as 24 hours because we have folks stationed throughout the country.
Terrific. Great. So, so if somebody is looking at this as we need transportation, or they just want to know more, they just go to your website, pick up the phone. What's the best way to reach out?
Our website, which is very informative, we always encourage folks to go to our website, which is gomotravel.com, GOMO travel.com. You can also email us at info@gomotravel.com. And then we have our social media as well, LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram, those types of things.
Great. What a cool thing that you're doing. You're making the world better for people. And I don't think that there's anything, if you're an entrepreneur like you are, nothing better than improving the lives of older people and really of families and communities as well. So thank you very much for joining me. And if you've got transportation struggles, I'm thinking maybe I got to try to figure out how I could use you to get my stepfather out more. I don't know, but I appreciate your joining me today.
Well, thank you, Steve. We're here to help whenever folks need us, and there is no FOMO with GoMo, remember.